What would you do if your ex invited you to his wedding just to prove he had replaced you? Harper Lane stood in the rain outside Chicago's most dangerous private club, holding the last thing her grandmother ever gave her, and a request no sane woman should make. Inside waited Roman Blackwell, the kind of man politicians feared criminals obeyed, and good girls were warned never to look at twice. But Harper wasn't there for love. She was there because heartbreak had turned into humiliation, and humiliation had finally turned into courage. She needed him for one night, one wedding, one lie powerful enough to make every person who pitied her choke on their own judgment. But when the Mafia king said yes, he didn't just agree to pretend. He opened a door she could never close again. Like this video comment where you're watching from and stay until the end. The door he opened did not look like a door at first. It looked like a mistake. It looked like polished black wood brass handles and a line of men who knew how to stand still without seeming human. It looked like Harper Lane walking out of the rain and into a world that had no use for girls who worked late, counted grocery money in the checkout line, and still kept thank you cards from people who had long since forgotten her name. Roman Blackwell's hand was warm around hers for only 1 second. Then he let go. The loss of contact felt louder than it should have. Harper told herself that was fear. Nothing more. Fear could make strange things feel important. Fear could turn a man's hand into an anchor and a room into deep water. Roman stepped back behind his desk as if the deal had been a line on a contract instead of a crack opening in both their lives. "You have a phone?" he asked. Harper blinked. "Yes. Give it to me." Her fingers closed around the strap of her purse. "Why?" "So I can put my number in it. You could just say it." "I could," Roman said, looking at her with calm irritation. "But you would type 1 digit wrong because your hands are shaking, then you would call a dentist in Milwaukee instead of me and wonder why your life keeps disappointing you." Harper stared at him. A laugh almost came out. Almost. It got trapped somewhere behind her ribs, tangled with nerves and rainwater. She handed him the phone. Roman took it, entered a number, then passed it back. His contact name appeared as R. Blackwell. Nothing else. No title, no emoji, no warning label. Though Harper thought the phone should have flashed red the moment he touched it. He glanced toward the closed office door. "Dante will drive you home. I can take the train." "You can." "You won't." Harper lifted her chin. "I'm not one of your employees." "No," Roman said. "My employees follow instructions faster." The insult should have offended her. Maybe it did. But beneath it she heard something she did not know how to name. Not kindness. Roman Blackwell did not seem built for kindness. It was more like certainty, hard and unpolished. He had decided she would leave safely, and that decision had become the shape of the room. "I don't need a driver. You came here asking me to be seen beside you at a senator's son's wedding. That means by morning at least 3 people will know you were here. 1 will sell the information. 1 will bury it. 1 will try to use it." His eyes moved over her damp coat, her cheap shoes, the velvet box clutched in her hand. "You need a driver." Harper hated that he was probably right. She hated more that some small exhausted part of her wanted to be taken care of even by a man who looked as if he had forgotten how to be gentle a long time ago. Roman pressed a button on his desk. "Dante." The door opened less than 10 seconds later. The man who entered was tall, broad, and quiet in the way of a closed fist. He had dark skin, a shaved head, and a scar that cut through one eyebrow. His suit fit like armor. His eyes swept over Harper once, not rudely, not warmly, just carefully. "Take Miss Lane home," Roman said. Harper frowned. "I didn't tell you where I live." Roman looked at Dante. Dante said, "Logan Square, above the laundromat on Kedzie." Cold moved through Harper's stomach. Her hand tightened around the velvet box. Roman noticed. Of course he noticed. "If I wanted to hurt you," he said softly, "you wouldn't have made it past the hostess." That did not comfort her. It was not meant to. Harper turned toward the door, but Roman spoke before she reached it. "Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. A car will be outside your building." She turned back. "For what?" "For the 13 days you gave me. I didn't give you 13 days. You demanded them, and you agreed. I have work. Call in sick. For 13 days, quit." The word hit the air like a glass breaking. Harper laughed, once sharp and humorless. "You think people like me can just quit jobs? I think people like you stay in places that teach you to be grateful for being overlooked." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Roman's gaze did not soften, but his voice dropped. "If you want to walk into Lake Forest and survive that room, you can't spend the next 13 days letting people remind you who they think you are." Harper felt the words press into a bruise she had been pretending not to have. Dante opened the office door and waited. Harper stepped into the hallway, but she carried Roman's sentence with her like a stone in her coat pocket. The ride home was quiet. Chicago blurred beyond the tinted window, all wet pavement and red brake lights, and restaurants closing their doors for the night. The city looked different from the back seat of a black town car. Colder, cleaner, as if distance could make any place beautiful. Harper kept the velvet box in her lap. Dante drove without checking the rearview mirror too often. That made him more unnerving, not less. Men who did not need to look back usually already knew what was behind them. After 10 minutes, he said, "You scared him." Harper looked up. "Excuse me, Roman." She almost laughed again. "I seriously doubt that. You asked him for something nobody asks him for. A favor. A role." Harper looked out the window. He didn't seem scared. He never does. The words settled oddly. By the time the car stopped in front of her building, the rain had softened to mist. The laundromat below her apartment glowed blue and white in the dark. A woman folded towels inside with the slow mechanical patience of someone too tired to go home. The neon sign buzzed. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked at nothing. This was Harper's world. Thin walls, rent due, old radiator heat, a mailbox that jammed in winter. Dante stepped out and opened her door. "I can open a car door," Harper said. "I'm sure you can." He did not move. She got out. At the building entrance, she turned back. "Does he do this often?" Dante's expression did not change. "Do what take in strange women who ask him to ruin weddings?" No. The answer should have made her feel foolish. Instead, it made her feel worse. Upstairs, her apartment smelled faintly of laundry soap, old coffee, and the Thai takeout she had eaten standing over the sink 2 nights ago. A yellow lamp glowed in the corner. Her sofa sagged on one side. A stack of legal files sat on the tiny dining table because she had brought work home again, even though no one had asked her to. Harper locked the door behind her. Then she locked the deadbolt, then the chain. Then she stood there, still wearing her damp coat, and finally let her shoulders fall. The silence in the apartment was not peaceful. It was familiar, which was different. Her phone buzzed. Tessa. "Did he laugh you out of the building, or should I start choosing funeral music?" Harper stared at the message until the words blurred. Then she typed. "He said yes." The reply came almost instantly. "I'm sorry. Autocorrect must have ruined that. Did you say the alleged crime king of Chicago said yes?" Harper sat on the arm of the sofa. "Yes," Tessa called. Harper let it ring twice before answering. "Start talking," Tessa said, "and leave out nothing except crimes I can be subpoenaed about." Harper closed her eyes. "He wants 13 days. Silence. Then Tessa said, "Harper, I know. No, I don't think you do." When a normal man says he wants 13 days, it means he's planning a road trip or avoiding commitment. When a man like Roman Blackwell says it, it means someone is definitely ending up in a river. He said he needs to teach me, to do what launder money to walk into the wedding without looking like they broke me. Tessa went quiet. That was rare. Harper could hear the hum of the city through the phone, the faint clink of dishes on Tessa's end, the life continuing around them as if Harper had not just handed her future to a stranger in a private club. Finally, Tessa said, "And is that what you want?" Harper looked at the velvet box in her hand. Her grandmother's locket waited inside, gold, dulled with age, sapphire small but stubbornly bright. She had almost traded it away tonight, almost given the last piece of her grandmother to a man whose reputation was made of blood and whispered favors. "I don't know what I want," Harper said. "That's not true." Harper swallowed. Tessa's voice gentled. "You know exactly what you want. You just think wanting it makes you pathetic." The words went straight through her. Harper looked toward the narrow hallway where a cardboard box still sat outside her bedroom. Preston's things, a blue sweater, a book on campaign strategy, a framed photo from a charity dinner where Harper wore a pale dress Eleanor Hale had chosen because it was modest, tasteful, and did not compete with the family. She had packed the box 3 months ago. She had never sent it. "I want him to regret it," Harper whispered. Tessa did not answer right away. Then, very softly, "Of course you do." The memory came before Harper could stop it. Preston had ended their engagement in a restaurant where the servers wore white jackets and never interrupted rich people at the wrong time. It was the kind of place where Harper had always felt one wrong fork away from being exposed. He had chosen a table near the back. That was the first sign. Preston Hale loved being seen. He loved windows, center tables, rooms that could admire him from every angle. That night he sat with his back to the wall and his hands folded beside untouched wine. Harper remembered the candles, the low music, the way the waiter smiled at Preston like he belonged there and at Harper like she had been invited by accident. Harper Preston had said, and her name in his mouth sounded rehearsed. She set her napkin in her lap. "You're scaring me." He reached for her hand, but his touch was careful. Too careful. Like she was something fragile he planned to put down gently before walking away. "My father's campaign is entering a difficult phase." She stared at him. "Okay. There are expectations now. Alliances, donors, people watching every decision we make. His jaw tightened. That was when her heart began to understand before her mind did. "Vivian Cross's father has influence in the federal courts," Preston said. "Her family and mine have discussed a possible arrangement." Harper heard herself laugh. It was a small, ugly sound. An arrangement. "Don't do that. Do what make this sound cheap." She pulled her hand back. "You're leaving me for a judge's daughter because your father wants better campaign optics. I don't have to make it sound cheap, Preston." "It came that way." His face flushed. Not with shame, with annoyance. That hurt more. "You're being emotional. I'm your fiancé. Were," he said. The word slipped out too fast. The table seemed to tilt. Preston closed his eyes as if she had forced him to be cruel. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You are wonderful, Harper. You are kind and steady and good." She stared at the candle flame until it split in two. "You're describing a reliable car. I'm trying to tell you this isn't about your worth." "That's funny because it feels exactly like a price tag." His mouth tightened again. Then came the sentence that stayed with her long after everything else went numb. "You were never built for the life I'm stepping into." Harper had not cried at the table. She had nodded. paid for the wine she did not drink because Preston's card had declined from a bank security hold, and he looked embarrassed. She had walked home in heels that cut her ankles bloody. She had taken off the engagement ring and placed it on the kitchen counter beside a pile of unopened mail. Then she had sat on the floor until morning. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Cream paper, gold lettering, thick enough to feel like a verdict. Preston Hale and Vivian Cross request the honor of your presence. Harper had read the words once, then again. Then she noticed the line beneath her name, Harper Lane and guest. That was the part that made her sit down. Not the wedding, not the date, not Vivian's name beside his, and guest. As if the Hales had known she would have no one. As if they had printed the empty space beside her name just to show her where she had failed to matter. She had put the invitation in the drawer where she kept batteries, coupons, and old birthday candles. Then she opened that drawer every day for 3 weeks. The next morning, after the Monarch Club. Harper woke before her alarm. For a few seconds, she did not remember why her chest felt so tight. Then her phone lit up. R. Blackwell. Outside. 1 word. No good morning, no punctuation, no softness. Harper sat up. The radiator hissed beside the window. Sunlight pressed weakly through the blinds. Downstairs, the laundromat machines thumped to life, steady as a second heartbeat. She typed, I said 8. The reply came immediately. It is 8. She looked at the clock. 7:59. Her phone buzzed again. Now. Harper stared at the screen and muttered, unbelievable. She dressed in black pants, a cream sweater, and the coat that still smelled faintly of rain and cigarette smoke from Roman's club. Before leaving, she opened the velvet box and took out the locket. For a moment, she held it in her palm. Her grandmother Lillian Lane had worn that locket in every photograph Harper had ever seen. Lillian had raised 4 children after her husband died young. She had cleaned offices at night, grown tomatoes in coffee cans, and once told a landlord twice her size that she would rather sleep in the street than pay money she did not owe. Harper remembered being 7 years old, sitting at her grandmother's kitchen table while Lillian rolled pie dough with strong hands. People will call you sweet when they mean easy, her grandmother had said. Don't help them. Harper had not understood then. She understood now. She fastened the locket around her neck. The car downstairs was not the same one from the night before. This one was an SUV with black windows and a driver who did not introduce himself. Dante sat in the front passenger seat reading something on his phone. Morning, Harper said as she climbed in. Dante glanced back. Miss Lane. That's it? You wanted a song? She almost smiled. The drive downtown felt longer in daylight. Chicago looked less dangerous under morning clouds, but Harper knew better now. Last night had peeled back a corner of the city and shown her the machinery beneath. The SUV stopped outside a glass tower overlooking the river. Harper looked up. The building rose into the sky like money had learned to stand upright. Roman lives here. Dante opened the door. Sometimes. What does that mean? It means he owns places he doesn't sleep in. That sounds lonely. Dante looked at her, then really looked. It is. Inside the lobby smelled like stone flowers and wealth. A doorman greeted Dante by name and did not ask Harper anything. They took a private elevator that required a key card, then a code, then Dante's thumb against a scanner. Harper watched the numbers climb. 31, 32, 33. The elevator opened directly into Roman Blackwell's penthouse. For a moment, Harper forgot to move. The place was enormous in a way that felt almost rude. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the river in silver light. The furniture was black, low, and severe. The walls held abstract paintings that looked like storms trapped in glass. There were no family photos, no clutter, no shoes by the door. Nothing that suggested a person lived there instead of merely occupying strategic territory. A woman waited near the entry. She was in her 60s, with silver hair pinned at the back of her head, a black dress, and the posture of someone who had never once apologized for existing. "Miss Lane," she said. "I'm Mrs. Ellery Shaw. I manage Mr. Blackwell's household." Harper nodded. "Nice to meet you." Mrs. Shaw's eyes moved over her coat, her shoes, her locket. Not judging. Inventorying. "Mr. Blackwell is in the dining room. He dislikes lateness dramatics before coffee and unnecessary noise." Harper looked at Dante. Dante said, "She likes you." Mrs. Shaw turned without a word. Harper followed her through the penthouse, feeling each step echo too sharply on the stone floor. Roman sat at the end of a long dining table reading from a tablet. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. No jacket, no tie. Somehow that made him look more dangerous, not less. A plate waited across from him. Eggs, toast, fruit arranged so neatly it looked accused of something. "You're late," Roman said without looking up. Harper stopped beside the chair. "I was downstairs at 8. "You were in the elevator at 8. "Do you practice being impossible, or does it come naturally?" Roman looked up then. Something flickered across his mouth. Not a smile. A thread of one. "Sit." Harper sat because she was hungry and because refusing would have felt childish. Mrs. Shaw poured coffee into a white cup and placed it near Harper's hand. Harper took a sip. It was bitter enough to qualify as punishment. She coughed. Roman looked back at his tablet. "You'll get used to it. I'd rather not build character through coffee." Mrs. Shaw made a small sound near the sideboard. Harper glanced over. The older woman's face remained perfectly still, but Harper was almost certain she had laughed. Roman set the tablet down. "Tell me about Preston Hale." Harper's fingers tightened around the cup. "What do you want to know? Everything you don't want to say. That's not invasive at all. I'm not interested in what makes you comfortable." Clearly. Harper looked down at her plate. The eggs were perfect. Of course they were. Everything in Roman's world seemed designed to make disorder feel like a personal failure. "We met at work," she said. "His mother hired the firm for a custody matter involving one of her donors. Preston came in to review documents. He asked me where the conference room was. I pointed. He said I had kind eyes." Roman's expression did not change. Harper looked up. "What nothing?" "No, that face means something. It means kind eyes is what men say when they want a woman to feel seen without doing the work of seeing her. The accuracy was so clean, it made her angry. He was good to me at first. I'm sure." "He was." Roman leaned back. "Tell me." So she did. She told him about the first 6 months when Preston brought flowers to her office and waited outside in his car because he said he liked seeing her come down the steps. She told him about Sunday brunches, museum dates, walks along the lake where he spoke about public service with a shine in his eyes that made her believe ambition could be beautiful. Then she told him how things changed slowly. How Preston started correcting her before dinners with his family. Not that dress. Not that joke. "Do not mention your father's bankruptcy. Say legal assistant instead of secretary, but not in a way that sounds defensive. Laugh softer. Stand closer. Do not look bored when donors speak. Do not speak too much when donors ask questions." "It happened so gradually," Harper said. "At first I thought he was helping me. Then, one day I realized I had become a version of myself that existed mostly to avoid embarrassing him." Roman watched her in silence. Harper hated how easy it was to keep talking. Maybe because he did not interrupt. Maybe because his attention was not warm, but it was complete. Preston had listened like a man waiting to correct the ending. Roman listened like a man gathering evidence. "He said I was quiet," she continued. "Near the end. Too comfortable. Too predictable. Like being with me was safe, but not exciting. Roman's jaw moved once. And you believed him? Harper gave a small laugh. Was he wrong? Yes. The answer came so quickly she looked at him. Roman's voice stayed low. Quiet is not the same as empty. Comfortable is not the same as worthless. Predictable is what men call women when they have stopped being grateful for peace. Harper's throat tightened. She looked away first. The city shone beyond the windows, bright and careless. You don't even know me, she said. I know enough to recognize a woman who has spent years translating disrespect into compromise. The room went still around that sentence. Harper set the coffee down carefully. Is this how the next 13 days are going to be? Yes. Brutal honesty over breakfast. Among other things, I might hate you by the wedding. That would make the performance more believable. Despite herself, Harper smiled. It vanished quickly, but not before Roman saw it. He always saw too much. After breakfast, Roman led her through the penthouse. He showed her the guest suite, though showed was too generous a word. He opened the door and expected her to follow. The room inside was larger than her entire apartment. A king-size bed stood against a pale wall. The windows looked toward the river. There was a desk, a sitting area, a closet with polished wooden doors, and a bathroom made of marble and glass. Harper stood in the center of it, afraid to touch anything. You'll stay here, Roman said. She turned. No, you'll need to be here daily. Daily is different from living here. Not for what we're doing. I have rent, a job, plants that are probably already dead but still technically my responsibility. Mrs. Shaw can have your things brought over. My things are not being brought anywhere. Roman studied her. Harper felt the old instinct rise, soften. Explain. Make herself easier. She swallowed it. I am not moving into your penthouse because you decided it was convenient. Something in his eyes changed. Approval, maybe, brief and irritating. Fine, he said. Harper blinked. Fine. You'll keep your apartment, but you'll spend most of your time here. That still sounds like you winning. I usually do. She should have rolled her eyes. Instead, she looked past him at the enormous bed, the empty surfaces, the windows with their beautiful, unreachable view. This place doesn't feel like a home, she said. Roman's face closed. No, he said. It doesn't. The honesty surprised her. Before she could answer, he turned toward the hallway. We start now. Harper followed him back into the main room. What exactly are we starting? Roman stopped near the windows. Morning light cut across the floor between them. You came to me because you want to be seen differently. Yes. No, he said. You came to me because you want to stop seeing yourself through Preston Hale's eyes. Harper went quiet. Roman stepped aside and pointed toward the far end of the room. Walk to the door. She stared at him. Walk. Yes. That's your grand plan for the next 5 minutes, yes. Harper exhaled, annoyed, and walked across the room. When she reached the door, Roman said, again. She turned. What was wrong with that? Everything, specific and encouraging. You lead with your head down. Your shoulders fold inward. Your steps are too small. You move like you're trying not to disturb the air. Harper felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm just walking. No, Roman said. You're apologizing for taking up space. The words struck harder than they should have. Harper looked toward the windows so he would not see her face shift. But he did. Of course he did. His voice lowered. People like the Hales build rooms designed to make everyone else feel grateful for being allowed inside. If you enter like a guest, they will treat you like a favor. If you enter like a woman who belongs, they will wonder who gave you the key. Harper turned back toward the far end of the room. This time she lifted her chin before she walked. It felt ridiculous. It felt false. It felt like wearing someone else's bones. Roman watched without speaking until she reached the door. Then he said, "Again." So she walked. Again. The city watched from the windows. Mrs. Shaw passed once in the hallway and did not comment. Dante appeared, took one look, and wisely disappeared. Harper walked until her calves ached and her anger sharpened into something useful. Every time she tried to make a joke, Roman cut through it. Every time she looked down, he corrected her. Every time she rushed, he made her start over. By the end of an hour, she wanted to throw one of his expensive decorative bowls at his head. Instead, she reached the door, turned, and met his eyes without dropping hers. Roman said nothing. That was how she knew it had been better. Harper's phone buzzed in her coat pocket. Tessa again. "Still alive?" Harper typed. "Physically, yes. Emotionally, under renovation." The reply came back. "Do not fall for him." Harper looked up. Roman stood near the windows speaking quietly to Dante, the river light cutting along the hard line of his jaw. He looked untouchable from that distance, like a man made by the city and sharpened by every dirty thing it had ever asked of him. Harper looked back at her phone. She typed, "I'm not stupid," Tessa answered. "That is not the same thing." Harper put the phone away. Roman turned as if he had felt her looking. Their eyes met across the room. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. Then Roman said, "Again." Harper should have been exhausted. She was. But as she crossed the room one more time, something shifted beneath the ache in her feet and the tightness in her chest. She was still afraid of the wedding. Still afraid of Preston. Still afraid that when the day came, she would walk into that estate and become small all over again. But for the first time in months, fear was not the only thing moving through her. There was anger. There was pride. There was the memory of her grandmother's voice telling her not to help people mistake sweetness for surrender. Harper reached the door and turned. Roman watched her from the windows, his expression unreadable. This time, before he could speak, she lifted her chin and said, "Again." Again became the shape of the next several days. Harper learned that Roman Blackwell did not believe in gentle beginnings. He believed in pressure, repetition, and silence so heavy it made a person confess things without being asked. Every morning, the car arrived outside her building before the sun had finished lifting itself over Chicago. Every morning, she told herself she could still change her mind, and every morning she stepped into the back seat anyway. By the 4th day, she stopped asking where they were going. They were always going back to the same place. Roman's penthouse, Roman's rules, Roman's gaze. The first lesson had been walking. The second was standing. Harper had not known a person could stand incorrectly until Roman made her do it for 40 minutes in front of a mirror. "Your weight is on your back foot," he said. Harper stared at her reflection. "That matters. It tells people you're ready to retreat. I am ready to retreat. I know. That's the problem." He stood behind her close enough for her to see his reflection beside hers, but not close enough to touch. Roman was careful that way. He invaded space without crossing the final inch. Somehow that made him more impossible to ignore. Harper shifted her weight. "Too much," he said. She exhaled through her nose. "Do you have a setting between merciless and intolerable?" "No." "Shocking." His eyes met hers in the mirror. Again. So she stood again. Shoulders back, chin level, feet planted, hands relaxed. Relaxed was the hardest part. Her body wanted to fold in. Her fingers wanted to grip something. Her mouth wanted to explain that she was trying, that she had always tried that. If trying were enough, she would not be here in a room that smelled like cedar coffee and money she would never understand. Roman saw every flinch. "Stop asking the mirror for permission," he said. Harper looked at him through the glass. "I'm not. You are." She faced forward again. The woman in the mirror looked tired. Her hair was tied back too tightly. Her sweater hung off one shoulder because she had dressed in the dark. There were shadows beneath her eyes from sleeping badly and waking before dawn. She did not look powerful. She looked like a woman who had made a terrible bargain and was too proud to admit she was overwhelmed. Roman moved to her side. "What do you see?" Harper swallowed. "Me." "That's a lazy answer." She almost snapped back, but the word lazy caught somewhere painful. Preston had never called her lazy. He had preferred softer knives. Comfortable, quiet, steady. "Not built for this." "I see someone who doesn't know what she's doing," Harper said. Roman's gaze stayed on her reflection. "Good. Now we have something honest." Her jaw tightened. "Do you enjoy humiliating people?" "No." "You're very committed for someone who doesn't enjoy it." "I'm not humiliating you, Harper. I'm removing what other people taught you to wear." Her breath caught before she could stop it. Roman looked away first. That almost felt like mercy. The next lesson was conversation. Roman called it social combat. Harper told him that sounded like something a man would say after making eye contact with a tax attorney for too long. He did not laugh, but Mrs. Shaw did from the hallway. It was small and quick, like a secret being folded away. They sat across from each other at the long dining table. Roman had a notebook open in front of him. Harper had coffee she still hated, and a headache forming behind her left eye. "People at the wedding will not insult you directly," Roman said. "They'll dress it beautifully. They'll call it concern, curiosity, compliment. So politics, exactly." He leaned back in his chair. The morning light touched the sharp edges of his face and softened none of them. "I'll be Eleanor Hale." Harper stared at him. Roman's posture changed. It was subtle at first. His shoulders lowered. His expression warmed by one careful degree. His mouth curved into a polite smile that did not touch his eyes. Then he spoke. "Harper, darling, how brave of you to come." Harper's stomach dropped. It was not his voice. Not exactly. It was the tone. The sugar poured over poison. The way Eleanor Hale could make kindness feel like a locked door. Harper looked down. Roman's own voice returned at once. "Dead." She looked up. "Excuse me, you looked down. Dead. That seems dramatic. If she sees that she wins before the first course..." Harper rubbed her forehead. "Fine." Roman became Eleanor again. "Harper, darling, how brave of you to come." Harper forced herself to smile. "I wouldn't miss it. Preston and I both ended up where we belong." Roman tilted his head. Still, Eleanor still smiling. "How mature of you. I worried this might be difficult." "It was," Harper said. "Then it wasn't." Roman's eyes sharpened. He dropped the act. "Better." The praise landed too warmly in her chest. She looked at her coffee. "That's it. Just better. Don't get greedy." They practiced for hours. Roman became Eleanor, then Preston, then a bored donor's wife, then a drunk cousin with too much confidence and too little tact. He gave Harper questions that sounded harmless until they slipped beneath her skin. "Are you seeing anyone seriously? Was the breakup sudden? Do you still work at that little law office? You must be relieved not to have the pressure of public life. Did Preston help you choose that dress?" Each question was a thread. If Harper pulled the wrong one, she unraveled. At first she answered too quickly, then too defensively, then too honestly. Roman stopped her every time. "Never hand them your wound," he said. "They'll call it conversation and press their thumb into it." Harper leaned back, exhausted. "You make people sound awful." "They often are. That's bleak. That's useful." She studied him across the table. "Who taught you that?" For the first time all morning, Roman did not answer immediately. His fingers tapped once against the notebook. "My father." The air changed. Harper waited. Roman's eyes moved toward the window where the river cut through the city like a silver scar. He had a gift for finding weakness, in enemies, in friends, in children. Harper's voice softened despite herself. "Roman." He looked back at her and the door closed. Again he said. So they continued. By the 7th day, Harper could answer Eleanor Hale without blinking. She could turn Preston's concern into embarrassment. She could smile at a veiled insult and return it polished enough to be mistaken for grace. But Roman was not satisfied. He never was. That afternoon, he brought in a stylist. Her name was Celeste. She arrived with garment bags, 2 assistants, and the brisk air of a woman who could identify insecurity by fabric choice. Harper stood in the guest room while dresses were brought out one by one. Black. Too severe. Red. Too obvious. Ivory. "Absolutely not," Harper said. Celeste lifted a brow. "You have opinions. I have eyes." From the doorway, Roman said, "Good." Harper turned. "Are you supervising my wardrobe now I'm supervising the entire operation?" "Of course you are." Celeste held up a deep emerald gown. The room seemed to quiet around it. The dress was elegant without begging to be noticed. The fabric caught the light softly. The neckline was simple. The shape was clean. It looked like something a woman wore when she did not need to prove she belonged because everyone else had already started wondering. Harper touched the sleeve. "This one," she said. Celeste studied her. "It requires posture. I've been terrorized into posture for a week." Roman's mouth moved slightly. Celeste looked between them, too intelligent to miss the current running under the words. "Try it on." When Harper stepped out, the room did not gasp. Real life rarely did that. Instead, Celeste stopped adjusting the garment bag in her hand. Mrs. Shaw paused at the doorway. Roman went very still. That was worse than a gasp. Harper looked down at herself. "Is it too much?" Roman's voice came low. "No." She looked at him. Just no. No correction. No sharp edge. No lecture. Heat rose in her face. Celeste began pinning the fabric for tailoring, murmuring to her assistant, but Harper barely heard her. Roman's gaze was not possessive. Not exactly. It was focused as if he had imagined this version of her before she had known it existed. Later, after Celeste left, Harper stood alone in the guest room wearing her own clothes again. The emerald dress hung on the closet door like a dare. Her phone buzzed. "Tessa, proof of life, please." Harper called her. Tessa answered on the first ring. "Tell me you still have all your organs. I tried on a dress, unless the dress was made of evidence that does not answer my concern." Harper sat on the edge of the bed. It was emerald. A pause. "Oh no." "What?" "You said emerald. Like a woman in a romance novel right before she makes the worst decision of her life." Harper rubbed her eyes. "I'm not making decisions. That's usually how the worst ones happen." The concern beneath Tessa's sarcasm made Harper's chest ache. "He's not what I expected," Harper said. "Dangerous men never are. That's how they get close enough." Harper looked toward the closed door. "He listens. Predators listen too. He hasn't hurt me. Not all hurt starts loud." The room went quiet. Harper knew Tessa was not trying to be cruel. She was trying to stand on the outside of the fire and describe the flames. "I know," Harper said. "Do you?" Harper did not answer. After the call ended, she found Roman on the balcony. Chicago stretched below him in blue evening light. The wind moved through his dark hair. His sleeves were rolled up, and for the first time Harper saw the scar near his ribs, pale and jagged, disappearing beneath the edge of his shirt. She should have turned away. Instead, she stepped outside. Roman did not look at her. You move quietly when you're trying not to be noticed. I thought I was getting better. You are. That's how I knew you were trying. She joined him at the railing, leaving space between them. The river reflected the city in broken lines. Who gave you that scar? She asked. Roman looked at her then. Most people would have told her it was none of her business. Roman did not waste words on the obvious. My brother. Harper's breath caught. Roman looked back at the city. He thought our father would choose him if I was dead. What happened? He was wrong. The answer chilled the air between them. Harper watched his profile, the hard line of his jaw, the shadows beneath his eyes. She had spent days being studied by him. Now she saw the cost of a man who had learned too young that love and danger could share a table. I'm sorry, she said. I'm not. Yes, you are. His gaze cut to hers. Harper's heart kicked once hard. Roman's voice dropped. Careful. Why do you always say that when I'm right? Because you don't know what being right can cost. The wind lifted a strand of hair across her cheek. Roman reached out, then stopped before touching her. The restraint was so visible it felt intimate. Harper should have stepped back. She did not. For one long second, the city disappeared beneath them. Then Roman lowered his hand. Tomorrow we rehearse the entrance. Harper released a breath she had not meant to hold. Of course we do. He turned toward the door. She caught his sleeve before thinking. Roman looked down at her hand. She let go at once. Sorry. His eyes returned to her face. Don't apologize unless you mean it. I did mean it. No, he said. You panicked. The truth irritated her because it was the truth. She lifted her chin. Fine. I panicked. Better. There it is again. What? That word. Better. She folded her arms. Do you ever say anything fully kind? Roman studied her in the balcony light. Then he said, You're stronger than you think, sharper than Preston deserved, and too honest for the kind of rooms you're about to enter. Harper went silent. Roman opened the balcony door. Don't look so pleased. I said fully kind. I didn't say gentle. He went inside. Harper stayed outside a moment longer, smiling despite herself. The next day, the penthouse became a stage. Roman made her practice entering from the private elevator. Mrs. Shaw stood near the dining room, pretending not to watch. Dante sat on the sofa, looking amused in a way that did not reach his mouth. Harper stepped out. Roman shook his head. Again. She stepped out. Too fast. Again. Too careful. Again. You looked at the floor. Again. By the time she did it right, she no longer felt like a woman walking into a room. She felt like the room had been waiting for her. Roman stood near the windows. Good. Harper stopped. Not better. Good. Dante gave a low whistle. Promotion. Mrs. Shaw disappeared into the kitchen, but Harper saw the smile before she turned away. Roman ignored them both. Now with me. Harper's pulse changed. Roman crossed the room and offered his arm. Not his hand, his arm. It was formal, controlled, proper. Somehow more dangerous than anything else. Harper slipped her hand around his elbow. The contact was light, but the effect was immediate. Roman was solid beside her. Warm, steady. Every part of him carried certainty. Standing next to him felt like standing near a storm that had chosen for the moment not to break. Do not lean into me, he said. I'm not. You thought about it. That should not count. It counts. They walked together from the elevator to the windows. At first, Harper matched his pace poorly. Then she rushed. Then she overcorrected. Roman stopped. You're trying to follow me. You're leading. No. We're arriving together. That sentence did something to her. She looked up. Roman's expression remained unreadable, but his eyes were not cold now. Again, he said softer. So they walked again. This time, Harper did not follow. She moved beside him. When they reached the windows, Roman looked down at her hand, still resting on his arm. Neither of them moved away. Dante cleared his throat. "Should I leave, or are we all pretending the air didn't just catch fire?" Harper pulled her hand back. Roman looked at Dante with a calmness that felt murderous. Dante stood. "Leaving." Mrs. Shaw's voice floated from the kitchen. "Take your shoes off the sofa before you die." For the first time since Harper had met him, Roman laughed. It was brief, low, almost unwilling, but it was real. Harper stared. Roman looked at her. "What?" "You laughed. I've laughed before." "I doubt that." His mouth curved barely. Again. By the final evening before the wedding, Harper no longer recognized the rhythm of her own life. Her apartment had become a place she slept in, not a place she returned to. Her old job had become a row of unread emails and one voicemail from her boss asking whether she planned to be dramatic much longer. Preston had become less of an open wound and more of a photograph left too long in sunlight fading at the edges. Roman had become the dangerous part of every day she looked forward to. That frightened her most. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest suite wearing the emerald dress. Celeste had altered it perfectly. The fabric followed her body without clinging. Her hair was pinned low. The locket rested at her throat. The woman in the mirror looked calm. Harper knew better. A knock came at the open door. Roman stood there in a black suit, no tie, yet his expression still as stone. Harper turned. "Well?" He walked in slowly. For once his eyes did not catalog flaws. They rested on her face. "You're ready," he said. Harper tried to laugh. It came out thin. "I don't feel ready. That doesn't matter. It matters to me." Roman stopped in front of her. Close, but not touching. "You think courage feels clean," he said. "It doesn't. It feels like a shaking hand you refuse to hide." Harper looked down at her fingers. They were trembling. Roman reached out and took one hand in his. His thumb brushed once across her knuckles. The room seemed to narrow around that touch. "Tomorrow," he said, "you do not look for Preston first. You do not look for Eleanor. You do not search the room to see who approves of you." Harper's voice was quiet. "Who do I look at?" Roman's eyes held hers. "Me." The answer should have sounded arrogant. It did not. It sounded like an offer, like shelter with teeth, like danger choosing to stand on her side. Harper swallowed. "And if I forget everything you taught me?" "You won't. You can't know that. I can." "How?" His gaze dropped briefly to the locket at her throat, then returned to her face. "Because the woman who walked into my club would have traded her last heirloom to be seen for one night. The woman standing here would burn the room down before begging for a place in it." Harper's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not like she was delicate. Not like she was useful. Like she was dangerous in her own right. Roman released her hand and stepped back as if he had remembered himself too late. "The car leaves at 4. Harper nodded. He reached the door, then paused. "Harper." She looked at him. His voice was quieter now, rougher. "Don't let them make you miss who you used to be." Then he was gone. Harper turned back to the mirror. For a moment she saw the old version of herself. The woman who had sat on the kitchen floor after Preston left. The woman who had opened the wedding invitation and felt her name become a joke. The woman who had walked into the Monarch Club with rain in her hair and desperation in her hands. She did not hate that woman. She had brought Harper here. She had survived long enough for this version to stand in her place. Harper touched the locket at her throat. Outside the windows, Chicago glittered like a city full of secrets. Inside the room, the emerald dress waited on her skin like armor. The invitation sat on the desk where Roman had placed it that morning. Harper Lane and guest. She picked it up, looked at the gold lettering, and smiled without shaking. The gold lettering was still in her mind when the morning came. Harper Lane and guest. For weeks those words had looked like an insult. A blank space beside her name, a place where Preston Hale expected loneliness to sit. But now, as Harper stood in Roman Blackwell's guest suite while pale Chicago light spilled across the floor, the invitation felt different in her hand. It felt like evidence, not of what she had lost, of where she was about to return. Mrs. Shaw entered without fuss, carrying a garment bag over one arm and a cup of coffee in the other. "You're awake," the older woman said. "I didn't sleep much." "Good. Sleep makes people soft before battle." Harper looked at her through the mirror. "Is everyone in this house allergic to comfort?" Mrs. Shaw set the coffee down. Comfort is earned after surviving the day. There was no smile on her face, but Harper had learned to hear the warmth beneath the discipline. The emerald dress hung from the wardrobe door like a secret waiting to become public. Harper touched the fabric once before stepping into the bathroom. The shower was too hot, but she did not adjust it. Steam filled the glass wrapped around her shoulders and blurred her reflection until she no longer had to look at her own face. For a moment, she let herself remember Preston's hands, the way they used to settle at her waist in public when he wanted the room to know she belonged to him. The way he stopped touching her near the end, unless someone important was watching. The way his voice softened whenever he was about to say something cruel, as if gentleness could disguise the wound. She pressed her palms against the tile. Not today. When she stepped out, Celeste and two assistants were waiting in the bedroom with brushes, pins, makeup, and the focused silence of people who understood transformation as a craft. They did not ask Harper how she felt. She was grateful for that. Her hair was pinned low at the nape of her neck, soft enough to move, controlled enough not to fall. Her makeup was subtle but sharper than anything she would have chosen for herself. Her eyes looked larger. Her mouth looked calmer. Her cheekbones seemed to belong to a woman who had never once apologized for asking a question. The dress came last. The emerald fabric slid over her skin like water made solid. Celeste fastened the back, smoothed the waist, and stepped aside. Harper faced the mirror. The woman staring back at her did not look like she had been abandoned. She looked like someone people would regret misreading. Her grandmother's locket waited on the vanity. Harper picked it up and tried to fasten the clasp, but her fingers trembled. A knock sounded at the open door. Roman stood there in a black suit so perfectly cut it made the room feel underdressed. His shirt was white. His tie was dark. His hair was brushed back from his face, and his expression was unreadable until his eyes found her in the mirror. Something in him stopped. Harper felt it. She turned slowly. "Say something." Roman entered the room. The assistants found reasons to disappear. Celeste followed them with the quick intelligence of a woman who knew when a room no longer needed witnesses. Roman stopped behind Harper and took the locket from her hand. "Breathe," he said. "I am." "No, you're preparing to run without moving." His fingers brushed the back of her neck as he fastened the clasp. Harper felt the contact through her whole body. The locket settled at her throat, warm from her palm. Roman's eyes met hers in the mirror. "You look like a problem," he said. Harper's mouth curved. "For who?" "For everyone who expected you to arrive as an apology." She turned to face him. For one breath, they stood close enough that the air between them felt spoken for. "You'll be beside me?" she asked. His face changed almost imperceptibly. Every step. The car was waiting downstairs at 4. Not the town car from the first night, not the SUV from training mornings. This was a long black sedan with polished chrome and windows dark enough to turn the world into reflection. Dante stood near the rear door, wearing a charcoal suit and an expression that made strangers instinctively avoid looking at him. He saw Harper and tilted his head once. Miss Lane. That means I look good, right? It means Roman is going to make terrible decisions. From behind her, Roman said, Careful. Dante opened the door. Always. Harper slid into the back seat and Roman joined her. The door closed with a soft, expensive sound, sealing them inside a quiet that smelled faintly of leather and Roman's cologne. The city moved past in pieces. Glass towers, brick buildings, traffic lights swinging in the wind. A woman pushing a stroller with one hand and holding coffee in the other. A man in a delivery vest arguing with a parking meter. Ordinary lives continuing, while Harper rode toward the place where hers had broken. Roman made one phone call in a low voice. He did not speak long. He said names Harper did not know and numbers that meant nothing to her. When he ended the call, he turned the phone face down on his knee. Business, she asked. Always. That sounds exhausting. It is. The honesty surprised her. She looked out the window as the city gave way to wider roads and cleaner lawns. Houses grew farther apart. Trees lined the streets in careful rows. The air itself seemed to change as they entered Lake Forest, as if money had filtered it first. Harper's hands began to shake. She tucked them into her lap. Roman noticed anyway. He reached across the seat and covered one hand with his. The gesture was quiet. No audience. No need. That made it worse. And better. You do not owe anyone in that house your pain, he said. Harper stared at their hands. His was larger, steady scarred across the knuckles in faint white lines. What if I see him and everything comes back? Then let it pass through. Don't build a home for it. She looked at him. Roman's eyes were on the road ahead. That almost sounded healthy. I read one book once. Despite herself, Harper laughed. The sound loosened something in her chest. The Hale estate appeared at the end of a long, private drive, all white stone, tall windows, and perfect lawns rolling toward Lake Michigan. White tents had been set near the gardens. Valets moved between luxury cars. Guests in silk wool and pearls stood beneath the late afternoon sky, holding champagne and speaking in voices designed never to carry too far. The sedan slowed. Harper's pulse climbed into her throat. Roman's hand tightened once around hers. Look at me. She did. Not down, he said. Not around. At me. The car stopped. Outside, a valet opened Roman's door. Roman stepped out first. Harper watched through the window as heads began to turn. Recognition spread through the nearest guests like ink dropped in water. Roman Blackwell did not need an introduction. He turned and offered his hand. Harper placed hers in it. Then she stepped out of the car. Conversation thinned, not stopped. These people were too well trained for that. But Harper felt the shift, the small break in rhythm, the pause between words, the quick glances that became longer when they reached Roman's face. Then hers. The emerald dress caught the light. Her locket rested against her throat. Her spine stayed straight because Roman had made her walk across his living room until every muscle remembered how. Someone whispered her name. Someone else whispered his. Harper did not look toward the voices. Roman's hand rested at the small of her back, light enough to be polite, present enough to be unmistakable. Ready? He asked. No. Good. They walked up the stone steps together. Harper did not follow him. She arrived with him. At the entrance, Eleanor Hale waited in a pale blue dress and pearls that looked inherited from women who had never carried their own bags. Her smile was perfect. Harper had once mistaken that smile for approval. Never again. Harper Eleanor said, extending both hands as if greeting a beloved daughter. What a lovely surprise. Harper let Eleanor take her hands for exactly 1 second. You invited me. A flicker. Small, but there. So we did, Eleanor said. I just wasn't certain you would feel comfortable attending. I appreciate your concern. Roman's hand remained at her back. Eleanor's gaze moved to him. "And you've brought a guest." Harper smiled. "Roman Blackwell." "Roman, this is Eleanor Hale." Roman offered his hand. Eleanor had no choice but to take it. "Mrs. Hale." "Mr. Blackwell. I believe I know your name. Most people who need to do." The sentence landed gently. That made it more dangerous. Eleanor withdrew her hand. "I wasn't aware you and Harper were acquainted. There are many things you aren't aware of," Roman said. Harper felt the air shift again. Eleanor's smile tightened by a thread. "Well," she said, "the ceremony will begin soon. I hope you both enjoy the afternoon." "We intend to," Harper said. Eleanor looked at her, then really looked, perhaps for the first time in 2 years. Harper did not lower her eyes. When Eleanor walked away, Harper exhaled. Roman leaned closer. "Very good. Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not." She looked up at him. His mouth barely moved. "I'm pleased." That was worse than praise. They entered the ceremony space where white chairs had been arranged beneath a canopy of flowers. The lake glittered beyond the lawn, blue and indifferent. A string quartet played something soft enough to be expensive. Guests watched Harper and Roman from behind champagne glasses and polite smiles. Dante appeared near the back, somehow already inside. Harper had stopped asking how he moved like that. Roman guided her to seats near the aisle, but not too close to the front. "Strategic," she murmured. "Visible without begging. Romantic. Accurate." She sat smoothing the dress over her knees. Her heart was beating hard, but not wildly now. The first blow had landed. She was still standing. The music changed. The wedding party began. Bridesmaids in pale gold walked down the aisle with practiced smiles. Men in dark suits followed, each one more polished than memorable. Then Preston appeared at the altar. Harper had imagined this moment so many times that seeing him in real life felt almost strange. He looked the same. Blonde hair, carefully styled. Navy suit, clean jaw. Handsome in the way that made donors trust him and waiters forgive him. His smile was ready before he even needed it. For a moment, pain rose. Not sharp, not fresh. More like touching a scar and remembering the wound. Roman's hand found hers on the chair between them. He did not look at her. He simply laced their fingers together. Harper breathed. Preston looked across the guests. His gaze passed over faces, paused, moved on, then snapped back. He saw her. Then Roman. The smile on his face faltered. Only for a half second. Harper would have missed it once. She did not miss it now. The old part of her waited for satisfaction. It did not come. Instead, she felt distance. A clean, strange distance. Like Preston Hale was a man she had once read about in a book she no longer owned. The bride appeared. Vivian Cross moved down the aisle on her father's arm, radiant and controlled. Her dress was flawless. Her smile was flawless. Her posture was flawless. Nothing about her looked free. Harper watched her and felt the anger she had carried for months loosen in an unexpected place. Vivian was not the villain. Maybe she was not even the winner. Maybe she was another woman dressed beautifully for a bargain everyone else had made. Preston took Vivian's hand. The ceremony began. Words about love drifted through the air, polished and hollow. Partnership, devotion, choosing one another. Harper listened and wondered how many people in the audience believed them, and how many simply appreciated a well-performed lie. When vows were spoken, Preston's voice was steady. Harper remembered that voice promising her a small house near the lake one day. 2 children, maybe 3. Sunday pancakes, a dog if his mother could be convinced. His promises had always sounded beautiful. She knew now that beauty and truth did not always enter the same room. Roman leaned slightly closer. "You're quiet," he murmured. I'm watching. And Harper looked at Preston and Vivian beneath the flowers. I don't envy her. Roman's thumb moved once against her hand. That was all. When the ceremony ended, the guests stood. Applause rose like rainfall. Preston kissed Vivian, and the quartet swelled as if music could make the moment holy. The newly married couple turned and walked back down the aisle. As Preston passed Harper's row, his eyes met hers. This time, he did not look away quickly. He saw her sitting tall. He saw Roman's hand around hers. He saw no tears, no pleading, no proof that he had ruined her. Something tightened in his face. Harper gave him a small, calm smile. Then he was past her. Roman stood offering his arm. She took it. The reception was held beneath the largest tent, though tent was too humble a word for a structure with crystal chandeliers, hardwood flooring, white roses, and a small orchestra tucked near the far side. Waiters moved with trays of champagne. Politicians laughed with donors. Women kissed cheeks without touching skin. Men clasped shoulders and measured usefulness in a glance. Harper knew this world. She had stood in its corners, carried its purses, smiled when Eleanor gave instructions disguised as suggestions. Today people stepped aside to let her pass. That was the first time she almost cried, not because they respected her, because she realized how much of respect was theater and how many years she had been denied even the costume. Roman bent his head. Too much, no. You're lying. Yes. Do you want to leave? Harper looked across the tent. Preston stood near Vivian, accepting congratulations. Eleanor whispered to a woman in silver. Several guests watched Harper openly now. No, she said. I want a drink. Roman's eyes warmed. There she is. They accepted champagne from a passing waiter. Harper took a sip and nearly coughed. Expensive, Roman asked. Tastes like nervous fruit. Accurate. At their assigned table, Harper found herself seated with a retired judge, a real estate developer, a lobbyist's wife, and a woman who introduced herself as Preston's godmother, but looked at Harper as if she had discovered an interesting stain. So the godmother said after the salad course arrived, Harper Lane, I must say you look transformed. Harper lifted her glass. How kind of you to notice. The woman smiled. I only mean you seem very different from when we last saw you. I am. The table went quiet. The godmother waited for more. Harper gave her nothing. Roman's knee brushed hers beneath the table. Approval without applause. The lobbyist's wife turned to Roman. And how did you two meet? Through shared interests, Roman said. The woman laughed lightly. That sounds mysterious. It was. Harper took another sip of champagne to hide her smile. The judge studied Roman with careful eyes. Blackwell. Are you in finance? Roman looked at him. Among other things. The judge did not ask the other things. Dinner passed in courses Harper barely tasted. Every few minutes someone glanced from another table. Whispers moved and dissolved. Roman remained perfectly at ease, as if being watched were simply another form of weather. Harper found that she was not pretending as much as she expected. She was nervous. Yes, but she was also awake. Painfully, vividly awake. Then the music changed. The first dance began. Preston and Vivian moved to the center of the floor. They danced beautifully. Of course they did. Every step looked practiced, every turn approved by someone with a clipboard and a family reputation to protect. When guests joined them, Roman stood. Harper looked up. No. Yes. We didn't practice this enough. We practiced. In your living room. And now we improve the scenery. He held out his hand. Refusing would draw more attention than accepting. Harper knew that. Roman knew she knew. She placed her hand in his. The dance floor opened around them. Roman guided her into the music with controlled ease. His hand settled at her waist. Hers rested against his shoulder. The fabric of his suit was warm beneath her palm. Harper focused on the steps. Roman focused on her. "You're counting," he said. "I don't want to step on you. I've survived worse. That's not comforting." "You're doing fine." She looked up sharply. "Fine." His eyes held hers, beautifully. Her breath caught. The word was too simple to defend against. They moved through the music, and the room blurred at the edges. For the first time all day, Harper forgot to wonder who was watching. Roman's hand at her waist became less like a prop and more like a promise neither of them had agreed to say aloud. Across the floor, Preston danced with Vivian. His eyes found Harper over his bride's shoulder. Harper saw the question there. Not love, not regret exactly. Possession confused by absence. He had expected her pain to remain where he left it. It had moved on without asking him. Roman's voice brushed near her ear. "He's watching." "I know. How does it feel?" Harper considered lying. Then she looked at Preston. Really looked and felt nothing break. "It feels like I survived a man I mistook for a future." Roman's hand tightened at her waist. "Good." After 2 songs, Harper needed air. Roman looked reluctant but let her go when she promised she was only stepping onto the terrace. The evening had cooled. Lanterns glowed along the garden path. Beyond the hedges, the lake was a dark sheet beneath the sky. Harper stood alone for less than a minute. Harper. She closed her eyes. Of course. Preston stood near the terrace doors, champagne in hand, expression carefully concerned. "You came," he said. "You invited me. I wasn't sure you would." "I know." He looked toward the tent, then back at her. "You look different." "So you said with your face during the ceremony." His mouth tightened. "That's not fair." "No, I just meant that this doesn't seem like you." Harper turned fully toward him. "Which part?" "The dress." "Blackwell. All of this." His voice lowered. "You don't have to prove anything to me." The old Harper would have rushed to explain. This Harper smiled. "How strange," she said. "I don't remember asking what I had to do for you." Preston's expression shifted. The concern thinned, revealing irritation beneath. "I'm trying to look out for you. You ended our engagement to marry someone useful to your father." His jaw tensed. "And now you're worried about me because I came with a man you can't dismiss. Roman Blackwell is dangerous, so are men who make women feel small and call it protection." Preston stepped closer. Harper did not step back. "You don't know what you're getting involved in," he said. "No. But for once I chose it myself." His hand reached for her arm. He barely touched her. Roman's voice cut through the terrace. "Remove your hand." Preston froze. Roman stood in the doorway, black suit, dark eyes, all the warmth gone from his face. The garden seemed to hold its breath. Preston released Harper at once, though he tried to make it look voluntary. "We were talking. You were finished." Preston glanced toward the tent where a few guests had begun to notice. Public humiliation was the only language men like him truly feared. Harper lifted her hand slightly, stopping Roman before he came closer. Then she looked at Preston. "You told me I wasn't built for your life," she said. "You were right. I had to become smaller to fit inside it." His face changed. "Harper." "No. I'm grateful now. Not because you hurt me. Because you made me see how much of myself I had already given away before you left." The words came calmly. That made them stronger. "I hope Vivian gets more honesty from you than I did." Preston looked wounded. Harper no longer felt responsible for tending it. She walked past him and joined Roman at the terrace doors. Roman offered his hand. This time she took it without thinking. They crossed the reception together, moving through chandeliers, music whispers, and faces too polished to show surprise properly. Dante appeared near the exit with Roman's coat already in hand. Outside, the night air hit Harper's skin. She did not realize she was shaking until Roman wrapped his coat around her shoulders. In the car, she looked back at the glowing estate. The wedding continued without her. Music, speeches, champagne, laughter. The life she had almost entered kept shining in the distance. It no longer looked like a dream. It looked like a beautiful house with locked doors. Roman sat beside her in silence for several minutes. Then he asked, "Do you still love him?" Harper watched the estate shrink through the rear window. "No." Roman looked at her. She looked back. "I think I loved who I became while trying to earn him. That's the part I'm grieving." Roman's face softened for one unguarded second. Then his phone rang. The sound sliced through the quiet. He looked at the screen. Whatever he saw erased every trace of softness. He answered. Harper could not understand the voice on the other end, but she watched Roman's jaw harden, watched his gaze move from her to the dark road behind them. When he said, a pause, his voice lowered. "Find Dante. Lock down the club. No one moves without my permission." Harper's fingers tightened around the edge of his coat. Roman ended the call and turned the phone over in his hand. The car kept moving through the night. "What happened?" Harper asked. Roman looked at her, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw something in his eyes that looked almost like fear. "The Hales weren't the only people watching us tonight." The words stayed in the car long after Roman said them. Harper looked from his face to the dark road behind them, where headlights drifted in and out of the rear window like distant eyes. A few hours ago, she had been standing beneath chandeliers learning that her heart could survive seeing Preston Hale marry another woman. Now Roman's coat was wrapped around her shoulders. His phone was silent in his hand, and every shadow outside the glass felt like it had a name. "What does that mean?" she asked. Roman did not answer quickly. That frightened her more than if he had lied. The driver kept both hands on the wheel. The city lights grew closer. Beside Harper, Roman sat perfectly still, but something in him had changed. His attention was no longer on her, not fully. It had spread outward, filling the car, the street, the dark spaces between buildings. He looked like a man listening to threats no one else could hear. Roman. His eyes moved to hers. For 1 second she saw the man from the dance floor, the one who had told her she was doing beautifully, the one whose hand had rested at her waist like it belonged there. Then the wall came down. "It means you're going home," he said. The sentence landed cold. Harper blinked. "What?" "When we reach the city, Dante will take you back to your apartment. You said we were going to the penthouse. I changed my mind." "Because of that call?" "Yes." "Then tell me what happened." "No." The word was flat, final. Harper stared at him, waiting for the explanation that did not come. The car entered Chicago again, passing beneath strips of orange streetlight. Roman's face appeared and vanished in the rhythm of the city, hard-shadowed, unreadable. "You don't get to do that," Harper said. His gaze cut to hers. "I do." "No. You don't get to put your coat on my shoulders, hold my hand through the worst day of my life, tell me people were watching us, and then drop me at my apartment like a returned package." His jaw tightened. "I told you from the beginning this was temporary. You told me a lot of things, and you heard what you wanted. The cruelty was precise. It did not sound accidental." Harper felt it strike, then spread. For a moment she was back at that restaurant with Preston listening to a man soften his voice around a blade. She pulled Roman's coat off her shoulders and set it between them. Roman looked at it. Something moved in his face. Not regret. Not enough. The car stopped in front of her building. The laundromat was closed now, its neon sign buzzing weakly behind the glass. The sidewalk glistened from earlier rain. Her apartment windows were dark except for the one light she had forgotten to turn off in the kitchen. Dante opened the door. Harper did not move. She looked at Roman. "Say it honestly." His eyes were dark. "Say what?" "That you're sending me away because the job is done. Not because you're scared." The silence changed shape. Dante looked toward the street, suddenly very interested in nothing. Roman leaned closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "I am not a safe man to stand beside." "I know." "No," he said. "You like the idea of knowing. That isn't the same." Harper swallowed, but she did not look away. "You think I don't understand danger because I spent my life filing court documents and smiling at people who forgot my name." Roman's face hardened. "That is not what I think. Then stop treating me like a child." He looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "You were useful tonight. You did what you came to do. Preston saw you. Eleanor saw you. Every person in that room saw you walk in with me and leave with your head high. The agreement is complete. Useful." The word settled in her chest like a stone. Harper nodded slowly. "Congratulations," she said. "You finally sound like them." Roman did not flinch. That was worse. Harper stepped out of the car before he could say anything else. She walked toward her building without looking back, though every part of her wanted to. The front door stuck, as always. She shoved it open with her shoulder, climbed the narrow stairs, and reached her apartment with her heart beating hard enough to hurt. Only after she locked herself inside did she let her hands shake. The emerald dress still clung to her skin. The locket rested against her throat. Her makeup was perfect, her hair still pinned, her feet blistered inside shoes that had cost more than her monthly groceries. She walked into the kitchen and saw the stack of unpaid bills beside the sink. A laugh slipped out of her. Small, broken. Then the tears came. Not the wild kind. Not the kind from the night Preston left. These were quiet and furious. She cried standing up, one hand gripping the counter because sitting down felt too much like surrender. She cried because the wedding was over. She cried because she had won and winning had not protected her from wanting the wrong man to stay. She cried because Roman Blackwell had looked at her like she was the first real thing he had touched in years, then spoken to her like a transaction he had closed. When the tears stopped, she unpinned her hair. One pin at a time. Each one clicked against the counter. She unzipped the dress with difficulty and folded it over a chair. For a long moment she looked at the emerald fabric in her small yellow kitchen. It did not belong there. Neither did she, not anymore. Not completely. Harper slept for 2 hours. When morning came, sunlight entered through the blinds in thin, accusing lines. Her head ached. Her phone was dead on the nightstand. The apartment felt smaller than it had 2 weeks ago, though nothing had moved. She plugged in the phone and waited. No message from Roman. 3 from Tessa. 1 voicemail from her boss. 2 promotional emails. Nothing from the man who had changed the way she walked into rooms and then decided she should leave his. Harper made coffee. It tasted weak and burnt. She drank it anyway because hating Roman's coffee had become inconveniently intimate. By noon, she had cleaned the kitchen, taken out the trash, and opened her work email. The office had sent a schedule update, 3 client requests, and a message from her boss that began with, "Harper, I understand you've been going through something which was how people at work announced they were tired of your pain." She stared at the screen. For 3 years she had worked there. She had stayed late, corrected mistakes, remembered birthdays, printed emergency filings covered for attorneys who called her sweetheart while using her research in court. She had thought invisibility was stability because at least stability paid rent. Now the office felt like Preston's world in cheaper shoes. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Harper almost ignored it. Then she answered. Harper Lane. The voice was male. Calm. Familiar enough to make her sit straighter. Who is this Dante Russo? Her heart kicked once. Did Roman ask you to call? A pause. No. That woke her fully. Then why are you calling? Because a black sedan has been parked outside your building for 20 minutes. Harper went still. Slowly she stood and crossed to the window. She moved one slat of the blind with her finger. Across the street beside a hydrant sat a dark sedan with tinted windows. Her stomach dropped. Is that one of yours? She asked. No. Her mouth went dry. Dante. Step away from the window. She did. The apartment suddenly had too many corners. What is going on? Dante's voice lowered. There are people asking about you. About last night. About your relationship with Roman. We don't have a relationship. They don't care. Harper pressed her back to the wall. Who are they, Silas Draven's people? The name meant nothing. That made it worse. Who is Silas Draven? A man. Roman has spent 5 years keeping out of Chicago. Harper closed her eyes. The room felt too warm. Why would he care about me? Because you walked into a political wedding on Roman Blackwell's arm and Roman left with you before dessert like the building was on fire. In our world, that says something. What does it say? That you matter. The words hit hard, not because they were romantic, but because they sounded like a death sentence. Harper opened her eyes. The sedan was still outside. She could feel it without looking. Did Roman know you were calling me no? Why not? Because he would tell me to leave you alone and handle it quietly. And you disagree. I think you've had enough men decide what you deserve to know. The sentence took her breath for a second. Dante continued. Do not go anywhere alone. Do not answer questions from strangers. If anyone approaches you, call me. If you cannot reach me, call Roman. Harper almost laughed. He made it clear the arrangement is over. Roman says many things when he is trying not to bleed in public. The line went quiet. Harper's grip tightened on the phone. What does that mean? It means call if you need help. Dante ended the call. Harper stood in the middle of her apartment listening to the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant traffic below. Her old life had always been small, but it had never felt hunted. She moved to the window again, careful this time. The sedan pulled away. Not fast. Not hurried. Just gone as if whoever sat inside had finished proving a point. Harper did not call Roman. She changed clothes, black jeans, boots, dark coat. Her grandmother's locket tucked beneath her sweater. Then she took the train downtown. It was a bad idea. She knew that. But she had spent too many years letting men make decisions in rooms she was not allowed to enter. The Monarch Club looked different in daylight, less glamorous, more dangerous. The bronze door was unmarked, the windows black, the alley beside it wet from leaking pipes. A delivery truck idled nearby. 2 men smoked near the curb and stopped talking when Harper approached. The hostess from the first night stood inside the entrance. Her expression sharpened when she saw Harper. Miss Lane. Harper paused. You remember me. Everyone remembers a woman who asks Roman Blackwell for a miracle and leaves alive. I need to see him. Mr. Blackwell is unavailable. Harper took one step forward. The hostess moved to block her. 2 guards shifted near the wall. Harper felt fear rise old and physical. Then Roman's voice came back to her. If you enter like a guest, they will treat you like a favor. She straightened. I'm not here to be available to him either. The hostess blinked. Harper walked past her. One of the guards moved. Before he reached her, Dante appeared at the end of the hall. Let her through. The guard stopped. The hostess looked irritated. Dante looked tired. Harper followed him down the corridor. "You shouldn't be here," Dante said. "That seems to be everyone's favorite sentence. It is popular because it is accurate. Is he here?" "Yes." "Is he going to be angry?" "Yes." "Good." Dante glanced at her. "You know, most people try to avoid that. I used to be most people." He opened a door at the back of the club. Inside was not an office. It was a war room. A long table filled the center. Maps of Chicago covered one wall. Photographs, building plans, and financial documents were spread across the table. Phones buzzed. Men spoke in low voices. A woman in a leather jacket stood with a tablet near the window. Roman stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled jaw tight, eyes fixed on a photograph in his hand. He looked up. The room went still. Harper had felt silence around Roman before. This was different. This was silence with weapons inside it. Roman's gaze locked on hers. "No." Harper closed the door behind her. "I haven't said anything yet. You don't need to. You don't get to decide that." His face went colder. Several men looked down at the table as if eye contact had become dangerous. Roman moved toward her. "Dante." Dante did not move. Roman's eyes flicked to him. "You called her." "I did. That was not your decision." Harper stepped between them before Dante could answer. "It was mine to come." Roman looked at her like she had stepped into traffic. "You need to leave." "There was a car outside my apartment." A muscle jumped in his jaw. So he had not known. "Good." Harper felt the anger steady her. "You sent me home after telling me people were watching us. You didn't explain. You didn't warn me. Then your right hand has to call because some man named Silas Draven apparently knows where I live." Roman's voice dropped. "You should not know that name." "Well, I do. So now you can either keep pretending I'm safe or ignorant, or you can tell me the truth." The woman with the tablet looked at Roman. "She has a point." Roman did not look away from Harper. Nora, not now. Nora lifted one shoulder. "Definitely now." Harper looked at her. Nora was in her late 30s with cropped dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and the kind of calm that did not come from peace. It came from surviving worse things than panic. Roman pressed his hands to the edge of the table. For a moment Harper thought he would still refuse. Then he picked up the photograph he had been holding and turned it toward her. It was of Harper leaving her apartment that morning, taken from across the street. Her skin went cold. Roman's voice was quiet. Too quiet. This was delivered to the club an hour ago. Harper stared at the photo. She saw herself in jeans and a sweater, looking ordinary, unaware, easy to reach. On the bottom of the photograph, someone had written in black marker, "Pretty choice." Harper looked up. Choice. Roman's face did not change, but the room seemed to darken around him. Silas Draven likes messages with more than one meaning. "Tell me who he is." Roman turned away, which told her the answer cost him. Dante spoke instead. "Draven used to control the West Side before Roman took it from him. Drugs, weapons, judges, cops, campaign money. Roman pushed him out after Draven killed a family that refused to sell their building." Harper looked at Roman. He stood with his back half turned, every line of him rigid. Dante continued. "For 5 years, Draven has been trying to come back. He needs political cover. Senator Hale has old debts. Last night gave Draven a picture he could use." Harper's pulse pounded. "Me with Roman." Nora's voice was calm. "You at the wedding. Roman in a senator's house. Preston staring at you like an idiot. Roman leaving early with you. It creates a story." Harper looked down at the photograph again. "A story people tell about you can become a weapon." Roman had said something like that once. Now she understood the other edge of it. "So I'm leverage," she said. Roman turned back. No. The word came too fast. Harper met his eyes. Yes. Roman's expression tightened. You are not leverage. You are a civilian who should have been left out of this. But I wasn't. That is my fault. The room went quiet again. This time Harper heard something under his anger. Guilt. It softened nothing. It only made everything more real. She set the photograph on the table. What happens now? You go to a safe location until this is handled. No. Roman's eyes hardened. Harper. No, she repeated. I am done being moved from room to room by men who call it protection. This is not Preston's country club cruelty. This is a man who will put a bullet in you to annoy me. A tremor moved through her. She did not hide it. I'm scared, she said. I'm not stupid. Roman stepped closer. His voice was low enough to feel private even in a room full of people. Those are not always different in my world. Then teach me the difference. He stared at her. What you taught me how to walk into a room where people wanted to see me small. Teach me how to survive a room where people want to see me weak. No. Nora set the tablet down. I can train her. Roman's head turned slowly. No. Nora looked bored. You keep saying that like it changes facts. She is not part of this. Nora pointed to the photograph. She is printed on the table Roman. The words landed. Roman looked at the photo, then at Harper. She could see the war inside him, the part that wanted to lock her away, the part that knew she would never forgive him if he did, the part that had built an empire by controlling every variable and now found himself facing a woman who refused to become one. At last he said, 2 hours. Nora nodded. 4, 2, 3, and you stop growling at me. Roman looked murderous. Nora smiled slightly. Harper almost admired her. Training with Nora took place in the lower level of the club in a gym hidden behind a storage room that smelled like lemons and old wood. The space was bare. Mats on the floor, heavy bags, a wall of locked cabinets. No mirrors. Good, Nora said when Harper looked around. Mirrors make beginners perform. Survival is not performance. Harper rubbed her palms against her jeans. I'm not trying to become a fighter. Better. Fighters get overconfident. You need to become difficult. Difficult to grab, to silence, to move. Nora stepped closer and took Harper's wrist. Get free. Harper pulled back. Nora did not move. Again. Harper twisted. Nothing. Again. After the 5th attempt, Harper's breathing grew sharp. Nora released her. You're trying to be polite. I'm not. You are. You don't want to hurt me. I don't know how. That is honest. Nora showed her how to turn into the thumb, how to drop her weight, how to use surprise instead of strength. Harper practiced until her wrist burned. Then again. Then again. The word followed her everywhere. Again had taught her to walk. Again taught her to break a grip. By the 2nd hour, sweat dampened the back of Harper's shirt. Her knees hurt. Her right palm was scraped. Nora had knocked her down 3 times and apologized 0. Roman watched from near the door. He said nothing, but Harper felt him like weather. When Nora grabbed her from behind, Harper froze. Nora's voice was at her ear. Breathe. Harper could not. The hold was not tight enough to hurt, but her body did not know that. All it knew was restraint. Preston's hand at her arm on the terrace. Roman's order to go home. Every room that had closed before she entered. Nora loosened her grip. Harper. She forced air into her lungs. Roman stepped forward. Nora lifted a hand without looking at him. Stay there. A pause. Roman stopped. Nora spoke quietly. You do not need to win. You need to create 1 second. Harper's voice shook. 1 second for what? To run, to scream, to reach a weapon, to make them regret choosing you. Harper nodded. Nora grabbed her again. This time Harper dropped her weight, drove her heel down, turned hard, and broke free. She stumbled back, breathing hard. Nora nodded once. There. Roman's face had gone unreadable. Harper looked at him, sweat on her skin hair falling from its pins, one wrist red from training. Good, she asked. His eyes moved over her like he was checking for damage. Alive, he said. Nora snorted. From him, that's a poem. Later, Roman found Harper in a small side room, wrapping her bruised knuckles with tape Nora had given her. He stood in the doorway. You're hurt. Harper did not look up. I'm learning. Those are not the same thing. They are for people who were taught to stay soft. Roman entered slowly. The room was quiet except for the muffled sound of men speaking upstairs. He sat across from her. For a while, neither of them said anything. Then he reached for her hand. Harper let him take it. He examined the bruises with a tenderness that made her angrier than his cruelty had. You should not have to learn this, he said. I know. His thumb brushed near the tape. If Draven touches you, I will end him. That doesn't help me when he touches me. Roman looked at her. The truth of it sat between them. His voice was rougher when he spoke. I don't know how to do this. Do what care about someone and not turn it into control. Harper's anger softened, but not enough to disappear. Then practice. His mouth twisted without humor. You make it sound simple. No. I make it sound necessary. Roman looked down at her hand in his. I sent you away because I thought distance would keep you safe. You sent me away because I made you feel something you couldn't manage. His eyes lifted to hers. There it was again. Careful. Only he did not say it this time. Harper did not look away. For one long moment, the air tightened. Roman's hand still held hers. His knee was almost touching hers. His face was close enough that she could see the faint shadow beneath his eyes, the tiredness he wore like another tailored suit. Then Dante opened the door. Sorry. Roman released Harper's hand at once. Dante's expression said he was not sorry at all. We got a message. Roman stood. The softness vanished. Harper rose too. Roman looked at her. Stay here. She gave him a look. He closed his eyes for half a second. Please. The word was so unexpected that she stayed still, but only for a moment. Then she followed. In the war room, every voice had gone quiet. A phone sat in the center of the table on speaker. Beside it was another photograph. This one showed Roman and Harper leaving the wedding, his hand at her back. Her face turned slightly toward him. The image looked intimate. That made it dangerous. Dante played the message. A man's voice filled the room, smooth and amused. Roman, you always did have a weakness for beautiful exits. Tomorrow night, Warehouse 17. Come without the girl, unless you want me to start wondering how much she screams. The message ended. No one moved. Harper's blood went cold. Roman's face emptied of everything. That was when she understood why men feared him. Not because he raged, because when something inside him broke, he became still. Dante looked at him. It is a trap. Roman picked up the photograph. Yes. Nora crossed her arms. A messy one. Harper found her voice. Who was that? Roman looked at the photograph, not at her. Silas Draven. The name felt different now that it had a voice. Roman placed the photo back on the table. Get the cars ready. Pull men from the south side. I want eyes on every street around Warehouse 17 by dusk. Dante nodded. Nora looked at Harper. and her Roman finally turned. His eyes were dark and absolute. "She goes to the safe house tonight." Harper stared back. The room waited for her to argue. She did not. Not there. Not then. She looked at the photograph one more time at the way Draven had captured a moment that had felt private and turned it into bait. Then she touched the locket beneath her sweater. Roman's world had followed her home. Now it had given her a choice. She could become the soft place men aimed their guns at, or she could become harder to hold. Harper lifted her chin. "Fine," she said. Roman's eyes narrowed slightly because he knew by now that when Harper Lane agreed too easily, something in the room had shifted. She walked out before he could ask what. That was the first mistake Roman Blackwell made that night. He let her leave the war room without following. The second mistake was believing Harper Lane had agreed to anything simply because she said the word fine. The safe house sat in a quiet street near Oak Park, hidden behind tall hedges and a plain brick front that looked like it belonged to a retired school principal, not a man who kept guns behind false walls. Nora drove Harper there in silence. 2 guards followed in a second car. No one spoke much. The city slid past the windows in wet streaks of streetlight and shadow. Harper sat in the back seat with her grandmother's locket pressed between her fingers beneath her sweater. Fine. She had said it because Roman expected a fight. He had braced for one. The whole room had. Men like Roman understood resistance when it came loud. They knew what to do with slammed doors, raised voices, broken glass threats made through clenched teeth. They were less prepared for quiet. Nora glanced at Harper in the rearview mirror. "You are thinking too much." Harper looked out the window. "Is that a crime now? In Roman's world, thinking quietly before a major event usually means someone is about to cause trouble. Then maybe his world should listen better." Nora's mouth curved slightly. "That is the kind of sentence that gets people in trouble." Good. The safe house was warm inside, too warm. Lamps glowed in the corners. There were books on the shelves, dishes in the cabinets, clean towels in the bathroom. Someone had tried hard to make the place feel normal, which only made it feel more false. One guard checked the back door. Another spoke into a phone near the front window. Nora walked Harper through the rooms. Bedroom there, bathroom there. Kitchen is stocked. Windows stay locked. Curtains stay closed. If I tell you to get down, you get down. If I tell you to run, you run where I point. Harper stood in the living room, arms folded. "And if I tell you I'm tired of being stored somewhere safe?" Nora faced her fully. "Then I tell you the truth. Safe is boring. Boring is alive." Harper looked at the curtains. Beyond them, somewhere across Chicago, Roman was preparing to meet a man who had turned her face into a threat. What happens at Warehouse 17? Nora's expression lost its faint humor. Roman walks in. Draven tries to make him emotional. Men with guns make bad choices. Someone bleeds. That's your professional assessment. That's my optimistic one. Harper swallowed. Nora stepped closer, her voice quieter. "You cannot save him by running after him." "I know." "Do you?" Harper met her eyes. "I know I cannot save Roman from bullets. I know I cannot fight a room full of men. I know fear does not make me bulletproof." Nora waited. Harper touched the locket through her sweater. "But I also know Roman has spent his whole life thinking love means deciding alone." Preston did that with polished words. Roman does it with guards and locked doors, different rooms, same cage. Nora studied her for a long second. Then she said, "What are you planning?" Harper's answer was soft. "I am planning not to disappear." Nora did not respond. Maybe because there was no argument that could make invisibility feel safe once a woman had survived it. Night deepened. At 10:30, Dante called Nora. Harper could not hear every word, but she caught enough. Roman had reached the staging point. Draven's men had been seen near the river. Police scanners were quiet in a way that meant someone had paid for quiet. Nora ended the call and looked at Harper. "He is in position." Harper nodded. Her stomach turned, but her face stayed calm. At 10:50, one of the guards stepped outside to check the alley. He did not come back. Nora noticed first. Her head turned toward the kitchen door. The second guard reached for his weapon. A sound came from the back of the house. Not loud. A scrape. Then glass breaking. Nora moved fast. She grabbed Harper by the arm and pulled her behind the sofa. Down. Harper dropped. The front window shattered. Gunfire cracked through the room, sharp and deafening. The lamp beside the armchair exploded. Harper pressed her hands over her ears and tasted fear like metal in her mouth. Nora fired back twice. The second guard shouted, then fell. Harper saw blood on the floor. Her body wanted to freeze. Nora's voice cut through the panic. "Kitchen. Now." Harper crawled, then ran low, following Nora past the dining table as another shot tore into the wall behind them. Nora shoved her through the kitchen doorway and toward a narrow hall. Back exit. A man appeared at the rear door. Nora hit him before Harper fully saw him move. The sound was ugly. Bone against bone. The man staggered, but another came behind him, larger, faster. Harper's training returned in pieces. Drop weight. Turn wrist. Run toward light. A hand grabbed her from behind. Fingers digging into her upper arm. She did not scream. She drove her heel down as hard as she could. The man cursed. She twisted toward the thumb just as Nora had shown her. His grip loosened. Harper slammed her elbow back and felt it connect with flesh. 1 second. That was all Nora had said she needed. Harper used it. She ran. Not far. Another man stepped from the side alley and caught her around the waist. He smelled like smoke and wet leather. Harper fought, but he lifted her off her feet with brutal ease. Nora shouted her name. Then something hard struck the side of Harper's head. The world went white. When it returned, she was in the back of a van. Her wrists were bound in front of her. Her head throbbed. The air smelled of oil-damp metal and old cigarettes. 2 men sat across from her. One had a bleeding lip. The other watched her with the bored expression of someone used to frightened women. Harper breathed slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Fear wanted to swallow her whole. She gave it instructions instead. Stay awake. Look. Listen. Remember. The man with the bleeding lip noticed her staring. "You're quieter than I expected." Harper's voice came rough. "Sorry to disappoint." He leaned forward. "You trying to be brave? No." His smile widened. "I'm trying to remember your face." The smile faded. "Good." The van stopped after 20 minutes. Maybe less. Maybe more. Time had become slippery. A door opened. Cold air hit her face. She was dragged out into a yard of cracked concrete and rusted shipping containers near the river. Warehouse 17 rose ahead, its windows broken, its metal siding blackened by age and weather. Gunfire echoed from inside. Harper's heart stopped, then slammed hard. Roman. The men pulled her toward a side entrance. Inside the warehouse was a cavern of shadows and harsh white lights. Crates formed crooked walls. Chains hung from overhead beams. The river wind slipped through broken panes, carrying the smell of rain and iron. Roman stood near the center of the room. Blood marked his left sleeve. His face was cold, empty, terrible. Dante crouched behind a stack of crates, one hand pressed to his shoulder. Roman's men were scattered through the shadows. Draven's men held the upper level. Everyone had weapons. Everyone looked one breath away from ending the room. Silas Draven stood beneath a swinging light. He was lean, gray-haired, elegant, in a dark coat. He looked less like a gangster than a professor who had decided morality was for poorer men. When he saw Harper, he smiled. "There she is." Roman turned. The moment his eyes found her, the room changed. only slightly. Enough. His mask did not break loudly. It cracked in the place no one else might have noticed. His breath caught. His fingers tightened around the gun in his hand. For half a heartbeat, he was not Roman Blackwell, king of the city's shadows. He was a man watching the woman he loved dragged into the dark. Draven saw it. Of course he did, beautiful Draven said. I wondered if she was rumor or weakness. Turns out she is both. Roman's voice was quiet. Let her go. Draven laughed softly. There he is. Not the ghost. Not the Emperor. Just a man with something to lose. The guard shoved Harper forward. She stumbled but stayed upright. Roman's gaze moved over her face, her wrists the bruise she could feel forming near her temple. His eyes became murder. Harper shook her head once. Small. No. Do not become stupid for me. Draven noticed that too. Oh, she gives orders with her eyes. That is inconvenient. He walked behind Harper and placed one hand on her shoulder. She went rigid. Roman took one step forward. Every gun in the room lifted. Draven's voice sharpened. Careful. Roman stopped. Harper could feel Draven's fingers pressing through her coat. Her skin crawled. She forced herself to breathe. Draven leaned near her ear, but his eyes stayed on Roman. You took my streets, Roman. You took my judges. You took my roots. I told myself I could forgive ambition. Then you walked into the Hale estate with this girl and reminded every frightened politician in Illinois that you are still the man they look at before they lie. Roman said nothing. Draven smiled. So now I take something back. He drew a gun and pressed it against Harper's ribs. Harper's knees wanted to give. She locked them. Roman lowered his weapon. Dante shouted from behind the crates. Roman. Roman ignored him. Draven's smile grew. Put it down. Roman placed the gun on the floor. The sound of metal touching concrete seemed to echo forever. Harper stared at him. No. Roman's eyes stayed on hers. Not surrender. Trust. That was worse, because it meant he trusted her to survive the second he was trying to buy. Draven stepped closer to Roman, dragging Harper with him. You disappoint me, Draven said. Love makes men ordinary. Roman's gaze flicked to Harper's bound hands. Just once. The tape around her wrists was tight, but her fingers could move. The guard beside her had a knife in his belt. Draven's attention was on Roman. The man holding her arm was too confident. 1 second. Harper shifted her weight. The guard tightened his grip. She let herself sag slightly as if fear had finally made her weak. The guard adjusted to hold her up. His thumb moved. Harper twisted toward it. Hard. His grip broke. She dropped, slamming both bound hands down against his knife handle. It loosened in the belt. She grabbed it, missed, grabbed again, and cut blindly at the tape. Draven cursed. Roman moved. The warehouse erupted. Dante fired from behind the crates. Nora appeared at the side entrance like a shadow with a gun. Roman hit Draven before the older man could aim properly, driving him back into a metal support beam. Harper hit the floor and rolled behind a crate as bullets tore through the air above her. Her hands came free. She dragged in a breath and crawled toward Dante. He was bleeding badly from the shoulder, but his gun stayed steady. Are you hit? He asked. No. Good. Stay low. A man lunged around the crate. Harper grabbed the first thing her hand found, a broken metal pipe, and swung with both hands. It struck his knee. He fell with a shout. Dante finished the fight before Harper had to think about what came after. Across the warehouse, Roman and Draven fought in the harsh light. No elegance now, no myth. Just violence, breath, blood, impact. Draven slashed with a knife. Roman caught his wrist, drove an elbow into his ribs, then slammed him against the beam again. Draven laughed even with blood on his mouth. You will never be clean. Draven spat. Not for her. Not for anyone. Roman's face went still. For one terrible second, Harper thought he would kill him. and part of the room wanted that, expected it, maybe even needed it. Harper stood. Roman. Her voice was not loud, but he heard it. He always heard her. Roman's hand tightened around Draven's throat. Draven smiled, broken and pleased. Harper took one step forward. Do not let him choose what kind of man you are in front of me. Roman did not move. The warehouse seemed to hold its breath. Then Roman released Draven and struck him once hard enough to drop him unconscious to the concrete. Not dead. Done. The gunfire faded in pieces. Men shouted. Weapons clattered. Nora moved through the room with cold efficiency. Dante leaned back against the crate, pale but alive. Roman turned toward Harper. She saw the blood on him, the rage still shaking beneath his skin, the fear he had no idea how to hide anymore. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Not gently at first, desperately. Harper let herself hold him back for one breath. Only one. Then she pushed at his chest. Roman loosened his grip immediately as if her resistance burned. His hands moved to her face, careful now, checking the bruise at her temple, the marks on her wrists. I told you to stay at the safe house, he said. Harper stared at him. I was kidnapped from the safe house. His jaw tightened. You should not have been there at all. A laugh came out of her, wild and exhausted. Do you hear yourself? His eyes flashed. You could have died. So could you. That is different. No, Harper said, voice shaking now. That is the problem. You keep thinking your life is the price and mine is the thing to protect. I am not a vase Roman. I am not your redemption with a pulse. I am not a soft place for bullets to land. His face changed. Pain moved through it before anger covered it. Nora approached, then wisely turned away and began shouting at someone else. Dante, despite bleeding, muttered, I would pay money to not be here right now. Roman did not look away from Harper. I love you, he said. The words struck harder than gunfire. Harper went silent. Roman looked almost angry that he had said them, as if love had torn itself out of him without permission. I love you, he repeated lower now, and I do not know how to hold that without trying to put walls around it. Harper's throat tightened. The warehouse smelled like smoke and rain and blood. This was not how she had imagined anyone saying those words to her. There were no candles, no soft music, no clean hands. Maybe that made it harder to dismiss. Roman stepped closer but did not touch her. I sent you away because I thought distance was mercy. I was wrong. I kept the truth from you because I thought knowledge would make you afraid. I was wrong. I tried to protect you by making choices for you. His voice broke slightly. I was wrong. Harper felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she held them there. She had cried enough for men who called their fear care. And now she asked. Roman looked at her like the answer mattered more than survival. Now I ask. I do not order. I tell the truth. I make room for you to leave, even if it ruins me. The words moved through her slowly. She thought of Preston at the restaurant explaining her future like it had been voted on without her. She thought of Eleanor's smile, the invitation, the empty space beside her name. She thought of herself walking into the Monarch Club with her grandmother's locket and a bargain made from humiliation. She had wanted one night of borrowed power. Somewhere along the way she had found her own. Harper wiped at her cheek. I love you too, she said. Roman closed his eyes. The relief on his face was so naked it hurt to look at. But I will not belong to you like property. His eyes opened. No, I will not live in a beautiful cage. No, I will not be kept ignorant because the truth is ugly. No, and I will not be the only one who changes. Roman nodded once. There was no performance in it, no seduction, no clever reply. Only promise. Then I change. The first thing Roman changed was Draven's ending. Not because Harper asked him to be gentle. She did not. Silas Draven was taken alive, delivered into a chain of evidence witnesses and debts so carefully arranged that the public story became impossible to bury. Federal agents raided 3 properties within 48 hours. 2 judges resigned. A police captain vanished, then returned with lawyers. Senator Warren Hale announced a temporary leave from public life for health reasons, though everyone in Chicago understood that health had little to do with it. Roman did not become a saint. Harper would have hated the lie of that. But he began to move differently. He gave Dante control of the operations that could be made clean. He cut loose men who enjoyed violence too much. He sold businesses that had always smelled like blood beneath the paperwork. Some people called it weakness. Others called it strategy. Roman called it overdue. The first morning after the warehouse, Harper found him in the penthouse kitchen attempting to make coffee. He looked at the machine like it had betrayed him. Harper leaned in the doorway, wrists still bandaged. "Are you threatening the coffee maker?" "It is resisting structure. It is a coffee maker. Roman. It has one purpose and fails loudly." She walked over, moved his hand away, and pressed 2 buttons. The machine began to work. Roman watched in silence. Harper looked up at him. "You run half the city. Less than half now." And yet. His mouth curved. It was not the old, almost smile. It was real. That became their beginning. Not easy. Never easy. Some nights Roman woke from dreams he would not describe and walked the penthouse until dawn. Some days Harper looked over her shoulder in grocery stores and hated herself for it, then forgave herself because fear took time to leave the body. They fought. About guards, about truth, about Roman's instinct to make decisions before asking, about Harper's instinct to prove strength by refusing help even when she needed it. But they learned. Again. That word stayed with them. Again Roman told the truth when silence would have been simpler. Again Harper stayed when leaving would have protected her pride. Again they built something that was not safe because nothing real ever fully was but honest enough to breathe inside. 3 months after the wedding, Harper resigned from the law office. Her boss left a voicemail saying he was disappointed. Harper deleted it halfway through. She took a job with a legal advocacy nonprofit that helped women leaving violent marriages, coercive families, and men who used money as a locked door. The office was small. The printer jammed often. The coffee was worse than Roman's, which she had not thought possible. But people knew her name. More than that, she knew herself inside the work. One afternoon, a young woman sat across from her, hands clenched around a tissue. "I do not know how to leave," the woman whispered. Harper thought of cream paper, gold lettering, rain on black windows, and Roman's hand reaching across a car seat. "You do not have to know all of it today," Harper said gently. "Just the first door." The woman cried. Harper sat with her. That night Roman picked Harper up outside the office. No driver, no guard visible, though she knew better than to assume none existed. He leaned against the car in a dark coat, looking like trouble dressed for dinner. "You're early," she said. "I am improving. You are 6 minutes early. Dramatic improvement." She smiled and let him open the passenger door, not because she needed him to, but because she liked the way he looked at her when she allowed care without surrendering independence. 1 year after the night Harper walked into the Monarch Club, Roman took her back there after closing. The room was empty. No music, no guards at the visible doors, no whispering men in velvet booths, just low-light polished wood and the memory of rain. Harper stood near the spot where the hostess had tried to turn her away. "I was terrified," she said. Roman stood beside her. "I know. I thought you might laugh at me." "I almost did." She looked at him. He lifted one shoulder. Then you told me the groom's name. Very romantic. I was not romantic then. And now Roman took something from his coat pocket. Her grandmother's locket. Harper touched her throat instinctively where she wore it every day. Then she realized this was not the locket itself, but the velvet box she had carried that first night. The same worn blue box. The same soft lining. Inside was a ring. Not enormous, not cold with display. Gold simple with a small emerald set beside 2 tiny diamonds. It looked like power made quiet. It looked like something her grandmother would have approved of after a long interrogation. Harper looked at Roman. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. The first time you came here, he said you tried to trade your last heirloom for one night. You refused. Best decision I ever made. Saying no. Keeping you longer than one night. Her throat tightened. Roman lowered himself to one knee. Seeing that man kneel in the room where everyone feared his name did something to Harper she had no language for. Harper Lane, he said, voice rough. Come with me. Not to a wedding. Not for revenge. Not because anyone is watching. Come home with me every day you choose to. And if one day you stop choosing it, I will open the door myself, even if it kills me. Tears slipped down her face. She did not wipe them away. Yes, she said. Roman closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he slid the ring onto her finger with hands that were steadier than his voice. Harper looked down at it, then at him. I'm keeping my last name, I assumed. And you're learning to make drinkable coffee. I own restaurants. You own intimidation with table service. Roman laughed. It filled the empty club in a way no one in Chicago would have believed. Years later, Harper stood by the window of the home they had built outside the city, holding their daughter against her shoulder while Roman tried to assemble a wooden toy on the living room floor with the intensity of a man defusing a bomb. Their daughter, Lily, named for Harper's grandmother, slept with one tiny fist curled around the chain of Harper's locket. Roman looked up. She has your stubbornness. She has your glare. She is 6 months old. She made Dante apologize to a stuffed rabbit yesterday. Roman considered this. The rabbit had it coming. Harper laughed softly, careful not to wake the baby. Outside, the evening settled over the trees. Chicago glowed in the distance, no longer a place that swallowed her voice, but a city she had walked through, bled through, and chosen her way beyond. Roman rose and came to stand behind her. He did not touch her until she leaned back first. Then his arms came around her, and the baby both warm and certain. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Harper looked at the city lights, the club, the deal. She thought about it honestly. That was the kind of love they had now. Not one that demanded pretty answers. One that could survive true ones. Sometimes I regret the shoes, she said. I regret the rain. I regret almost giving away my grandmother's locket. Roman's mouth brushed her hair. And me. Harper turned in his arms enough to look at him. You were the dangerous part. Were. She touched his face, the man beneath the myth, the home beneath the danger. Now you're the part I chose. Lily shifted in her sleep. Roman looked down at their daughter, then back at Harper. The city lights trembled beyond the glass like distant stars. Once Harper Lane had walked into a room full of dangerous men and asked the most feared one to pretend he loved her. Now there was no pretending. No empty space beside her name. No invitation written like an insult. Only the life she had entered with shaking hands, the love she had demanded truth from, and the woman she had become by refusing again and again to disappear.